unfortunately, due to several different types of technical difficulties, we're not able to get a live show today. So I do apologize for that. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you realize we did not have a live show, but unfortunately, there's nothing much to do about it.
Yeah, there's just problem after problem tonight.
There are a few more of us, and we will go do some introductions after the opening sequence. One of us is, damn it, I forgot the quote because it took us so long to get started. I'm terrible at remembering things that I have in my head. But yeah, Flynn's not here, whatever the appropriate Fifth Doctor quote would be. But speaking of which, we are, sorry, 5 Doctors, not Fifth Doctor. See, I'm terrible at speaking when I actually go to open my mouth. A life lesson, I guess. But we are here to talk about the 5 Doctors. So after the opening theme, we'll do some introductions, and then we can hit the episode.
Alrighty, starting the theme.
Long intro. Yeah, man. Okay, yeah, there we go.
No, I get to this right point and then we cut.
Well, you know, really, for a Doctor Who intro, you could kind of stop it before you hit the middle 8.
But that middle 8 is what everyone wants to hear.
But when we do a
yes,
full
but it's
one
only ever used in the ending theme.
No, it isn't.
Well, we can end right now. Goodbye, everyone.
I would point out that even it seems long, but at the point at which Matt cuts is actually shorter than it would be if we did have the visuals with our names and everything, and Matt Smith's face and everything scrolling by.
True.
I'm gonna have to stop watching it at some point.
Longer.
Well, no, they would probably put everything together, like, you know, that ending where that case they like put all those names up and then like it's like always 3 per person.
Well, like, for example, one time I literally played the opening from the show, except only the audio was picked up on the podcast, and about a fourth of the way through, everyone was like, "Oh, it's too long! Stop it! Stop it!" I'm like, "Wait a second! Like, we're not even through with half."
That's been my constant problem with you guys. You keep coming in the middle of it. It's like we're not even done. Seriously, the opening for the show is longer.
It is, but we don't. Well, at least with our current recording, we don't actually have names and such. But anyway, introductions. So we do have 5 of us for the 5 Doctors. So since I'm the one talking, I'll go first. You probably recognize me if you watch the show. Man in Black, also known as Bill, also known as the guy who talks in the beginning. Whoever wants to take it up.
Let's go with Randy next.
I'm Randy Ronson McCulloch. I'm a regular on the cast. I'm the head of viewings for GeekCon. And would you care for a jelly baby?
I haven't had one yet. Give me one. Give me one. I am Matt, otherwise known as Mad Matt. I have a few other online shows, and I'm usually the guy who hosts the live show, and we'll have to make the altered live version in the next couple days, I assume. And we have our guests, Mike and Erin, whichever one you two wants to go first.
May I?
Go ahead.
Okay, my name's Mike, or Mike Evar. Like, I am mostly working with Matt in our newest group, slash project Abstract Theaters, which will be coming out eventually. I am the main writer of the group, where I try to set everything up with writing in terms of make sure everything's funny. Or
you're one of the writers, yes.
Oh, actually, well, yeah.
Yeah, it's arguable who's head writer in that group.
Well, everyone's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Just get a room full of chimpanzees. Eventually they'll beat out a script.
Not a good script, but a script.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on how long you wait.
So, if we put a bunch of monkeys to write the season 8, do you think they'll write better than Moffat?
Maybe.
Given enough time. It is said if you filled a room with an infinite amount of monkeys, with an infinite amount of typewriters, eventually they'd print out the works of Shakespeare. We don't have that many monkeys, nor do we have that much time.
I'm probably sure the British would probably give enough money.
Although, if we put some monkeys in a room and they just flung their own crap, then at least they would obey the laws of space and time better than Moffat season finales.
Yeah. Anywho, Erin.
Hello, my name is Erin Romeo Moon Burke. I am in charge of vendor relations for the GeekCon convention, but I also do my own little podcast or video cast called Lounge Leets, where we sit around inside the bars of various MMOs along with Matt and Randy and whoever else wants to join. We just talk about the game we're sitting in and everything, so...
And you're a huge Matt Smith fan.
Huge? I like him pretty well. I like him better than Tennant. I'm not a big Tennant fan.
You realize that's putting you separate from most of the other group here.
To be fair,
I would point out
that was alright.
Oh, we're getting echo off of Erin, by the way.
we are. But I should point out most of our guests seem to be along that vein, especially if you count Flynn. Flynn is generally more of a Moffat Smith fan than anybody else. Sophie was...
Has he been demoted to guest now?
I think so.
Pretty much lately.
Well, to be fair about,
Sophie was along that line. I'm not entirely sure about Thomas. I don't think he really spoke enough to really gauge him.
Yeah. Poor Tom. He kind of just edged himself out.
And which actually gives a good segue here to the
It
news.
does give a good segue as long as Erin's done introducing herself, is she?
Are you done?
Yeah, that's pretty much me. Well, I guess I should say that I started watching Doctor Who when I was a kid. It was on PBS, and I think the very first episode I saw was something with Peter Davison in it. It may have been The Visitation or something else. But I grew up watching mostly Tom Baker because my parents were Tom Baker fans. So
I guess I have to ask now.
That's in the same category as me as being one of those people that actually watched Classic Who back when it was on American television.
Makes me have to ask.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, makes me have to ask Mike how long he's been with the show.
I've been watching it on the DVDs because, I mean, to be honest, once I got past, I watched 2 to 4 of some of 1, and I loved it. I loved Tennant's acting. But when I was watching Season 5, I couldn't watch the whole thing because, okay, don't get me wrong, Matt Smith is an okay actor. I mean, he tries his best to be different from Tennant. While Tennant...
I think he does a good job of being different from Tennant if you're going by that as a gauge.
Well, Matt Smith is actually a fine actor. The problem is he's been getting handed a lot of crap.
That's what I was going to say. Matt Smith is an okay actor. It's just Moffat is terrible. I tried to watch Season 5, and I had no idea / no interest to continue watching. It just felt like a gobbled muck.
Yeah, currently we are standing in... excuse me. Yeah, currently we are standing in the modern-day version of the Sixth Doctor.
Oh, speaking of modern times, in local news, may I give the news?
Go ahead.
Sure.
I was actually going to use that whole Matt Smith relation as a segue for it, but yeah.
In modern news today, it has been confirmed by most Doctor Who fans that Matt Smith will be leaving Doctor Who.
Oh, it's not confirmed by the fans. It's
And
confirmed
more
by the
importantly by Matt Smith.
Well, NBC too.
BBC.
His
It's the
reasoning
British
for...
broadcasting company. The
His
guys
reas-
that make Doctor Who.
Okay. His reasoning for leaving probably states that while he enjoys being on the show, he felt like it was best for him to leave. Yeah, which is actually fair. Like,
time to move on, which is generally the reason for a doctor to go ahead.
Yeah, it was a pretty boilerplate reason. He might have gotten a better offer, or he's just gotten fed up with the scripts that's being handed to him. We don't know.
I would point out that about a week or two prior, the BBC had turned around and been like, oh yeah, Matt Smith and everybody else is definitely going to be on for Series 8. But then when news leaked, I believe an email ended up leaking out to a few sources, and they actually finally announced it as damage control, at least as far as I understand from Twitter.
Rule number 1, the BBC always lies.
they might, well, if possible, they could, like, kill off Matt Smith and, like, you know how they killed off, like, Tenet in, like, all those, like, Christmas specials? Like in that, like, it's not considered season 5, it's considered, like, 4.5.
Season 4.5.
Seasons, the season 4 specials.
Yeah, they could kill off, like, Smith, like, they could, like, make him regenerate in, like...
Now, the Christmas special this year is officially his last appearance, at least as the Doctor.
Yeah, that's right. That's actually starting to become a tradition. It's like, Merry Christmas, your doctor's dead.
Greatest Christmas.
Well, it's because
present
it's a wonderful transition time because it gives you that 3-month bump between the Christmas special and the new season for you to basically, wonder about the new guy.
I'm sorry, it just comes to me as,
Merry Christmas, what a wonderful gift. I'm going to go slit my wrists now.
There's also the fact that the last time that the Doctor wasn't finished off in such a, at such a neat point was the time when he choked his companion and everybody had several months to think about what a crappy doctor he was before he actually had a chance to show himself off.
Poor Colin Baker.
They don't usually change doctors mid-season anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's actually not the best audio doctor.
We were discussing this. We were discussing this on Skype the other day. What was the last time the Doctor? Well, we were discussing regenerations. What was the last time the Doctor changed mid-season?
That was the 5th to 6th.
Yeah. We
unless
said that already.
Or should I say?
Unless
Okay.
you count it happening in mid-movie to be mid-season.
Well, I was saying more like, actually, yeah, actually because that was just before the finale. Was there anything other than 1 to 2 that was actually physically in the middle of it, other than, you know what I mean?
Well, a lot of it they show you that last, the last 5-minute bump. And that was the first to second had the 5-minute bump. Second to third, actually, we didn't get to see the new Doctor until the season changed.
But what I mean was, the 5 to 6 changed one serial before the last of the finale, but 1 to 2 happened like 2 serials into the season. Was there when did 2 to 4
2 to
change?
3 2 to 3 had the series break. Planet of the Spiders was the finale from 3 to 4.
So 1 to 2 is basically the closest to a middle of the season change that we've gotten, really.
I think so, yes.
Other than that particular other one.
Other than 5 to 6, which happened one before the end, yeah.
What else?
So really all we have. The big question is, of course, if we're losing Matt Smith, are we also going to be losing Stephen Moffat as showrunner?
Nah.
And of course, he won't actually confirm that until the first episode written by the new guy actually goes up. So he'll deny it. He could be on his deathbed and he'll still deny it.
They still can't kick him off, mainly because the fact that Moffat actually planned this. I think Moffat planned this out. The reason why he ended it at the cliffhanger, it's because the fact that he already planned things out. So if, like, they kick him out, it would be like, how are we going to summarize all this?
No. See, they're only going to keep, if we're lucky, they're only going to keep him until after the Christmas special. As soon as the Christmas special is done, he can go out the door.
Yeah, then they'll probably summarize everything.
Okay, nice. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's so far the second longest running executive producer on the show, isn't he?
I'm not sure if that's
After
entire.
JNT?
No, well, yeah, John Nathan Turner ran longer.
Nathan Turner's run longer.
Technically, Russell T. ran from 2005 to 2009, so...
Yeah, he ran longer
And we
too.
had,
Huh.
oh, you know what? Maybe I was counting season 8 when I counted him as longest because that's 2 more years.
Mm-hmm.
Which really what we're getting is 4 seasons of 6 to 7 episodes each, and they're packaging it off as 2 seasons.
Yeah, they either need to put back to 13 in a row.
They really need to bring a producer who can focus on putting out a season a year instead of half a season.
Now, mind you, hold your tongue there, Bill, because a standard BBC season is 6 episodes.
Huh.
That's
That's
rubbish.
a standard BBC series these days is about 6 episodes.
Just like with Red Dwarf. Even Red Dwarf back then had like only about 6 episodes per season.
ugh.
Doctor Who having 13 episodes in a series is a little unusual. And the BBC has allowed it because Doctor Who was their flagship show.
But now they've been cutting that back and making a major mess out of it because, well, BBC's now on their own and trying to make money.
Well, really at the time, Doctor Who had about 40 episodes a season, at least from 2007 until 2007 and 2008, really.
What was that? Had what? Oh, are you talking between the 3 shows?
Yeah.
You guys are kind of getting me all lost here. I'm more or
Yeah,
less...
Bill just went on a weird number there.
Okay, just to let you know, Mike, back during the Russell T Davies era, there were 3 Doctor Who shows, Doctor Who and 2 spin-offs, in constant production year-round.
Yeah, I understand that. Sarah Jane Chronicles and Torchwood.
Yes, and what Bill was doing was saying, calling a season basically 1 season of each of those.
Oh.
It's a Christmas special.
So, 13, 26,
I think I added 10 by accident.
39, plus the Christmas special would be 40 episodes. You had it right, Bill.
I'll be damned.
I didn't say 50 the first time?
No, you said 40. You
Okay,
just
then I
said
was wrong.
40 and we
Okay.
went, what?
Yep. It took me a moment to figure out what Bill was talking about.
Yeah.
This is not unusual.
Bill's circular logic today.
But, of course, since then, we've lost Elizabeth Sladen, and Torchwood has kind of, gone sideways and off.
Take it out into the forest and shoot it, quick! Before it mutates.
So now we're back down to 13, and really they either need to put the 13 in a row or basically just make 6-episode series and actually call them separate series.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Series 7, it should have been 2 separate series.
Really, 7A and 7B were really 2 separate seasons anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they might do that. They will, either cut it down for, 30 minutes or, do this crap.
Oh, please do not cut 2 down to 30 minutes. 1 hour is too short sometimes.
If they're going to cut it down to 30 minutes, then they need to go into 4-episode serials again.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too.
Maybe they could be
that should actually get to what we're supposed to be talking about.
Yeah, tangents! We do that!
We are here to discuss the classic Doctor Who serial. Well, actually, no, it was never a serial. It was a special.
Yes, it was a special.
5 Doctors.
They did produce a
technically 4
serialized
Doctors.
version, but I don't know if it ever aired.
The
had-
original broadcast was as
Right.
one 90-minute
The
special.
original broadcast was one special, and then they also had it separate as a serialized version for the sake of reruns and the international market.
To be fair, actually, the 5 Doctors is kind of a misnomer. It should be 4 Doctors.
Well,
3 doctors, a dummy, and a guy in a wig.
Pretty much.
well, yeah. Actually, technically should be 3 because 1 Doctor is a fake replacement.
Fine,
and
3
1
Doctors and a
Doctor
half?
is all what's that?
3 Doctors and a half?
Sort of. But no, there's actually a good production story behind that is the fact that Tom Baker was originally supposed to be in it, and he opted out, and they gave a lot of what he was supposed to do to Peter Davidson's Doctor.
Which is pretty apt since he's the main Doctor at this point.
But apparently an early draft of it was the 6 Doctors, in which case it turned out that Herndal was actually a fake. At least if Wikipedia is to be believed. I mean, granted, Wikipedia is a dubious source, but if it's to be believed,
Actually, according to some of my specials, that doesn't sound too far off. I do have the special 2-disc edition.
Huh.
I've never heard that.
And there's a sequence where they push the William Hartnell-esque Doctor off of a cliff, and he falls off, and springs pop out of him and stuff.
Huh.
Which, of course, is what they went on to do with the following Dalek episode, or had Resurrection. No, Resurrection had already aired, right? Or no? Maybe not.
You know what? Would you think they would do the same thing? Like, invite, do a remake, bring 5 Doctors, like Matt Smith, David Tennant, the 9th Doctor, the 8th, and the 7th, or something, and they all work together? In November, Big Finish is actually putting out another 5 Doctors called The Light at the End. It's going to feature Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and Paul McGann.
Basically, all the Doctors they currently have on their staff at the moment. But
David Tennant? They cannot legally. Well, they cannot legally include Eccleston and Tennant as the Doctor if they appear to have
or Smith.
Role. Right, or Smith.
Big Finish production cannot actually use
or John
anything.
Hurt now, I guess.
Yeah, or John Hurt. They cannot legally use anything from the new series.
That sucks.
They cannot use any of the Doctors or any of the new aliens. And that was part of the sign-on that the BBC had them sign when they started rebooting the series. I don't think it was a restriction on Big Finish. I think it was a restriction on the actors themselves could not go on and make audio plays based on the new show. It's also in Big Finish's license that they cannot use any of the material from it.
Okay.
That sucks.
They cannot reference the Time War. They cannot reference any of the new aliens. It's part of their license.
Yeah, but also on the same coin, the live show is never going to get Tom Baker, so smig him.
But
yes, Tom Baker on this live show. That would be like 10%, 5%, 0.01%.
It would be a massive improvement.
However, what I was going to say is the fact that if the BBC decides they want a new adventure to be recorded, they can then sign a contract with Big Finish. It would be a separate license. And we are off track on the off track again.
Anyway,
anybody actually running the tangent counter?
Two.
Okay. So, before I actually give a summary, I would like to note that there are actually 2 versions of the 5 Doctors currently out there.
Really?
There is the original broadcast 90-minute version.
Right.
And there is the special edition version made for the 1995 DVD release, which included improved graphics and an additional 11 minutes of footage. Huh. A lot of the scenes were recut and extended, so it really works like a director's cut. Both versions are available now on the 25th anniversary DVD release.
And I believe it uses different but the same amount of shader footage.
It uses them in the same places, but
right.
That's slightly different.
I believe the specific visuals are cut from different parts of shader.
One of them is the same. The rest of the footage used is different. The special effects is different. They rescored some of it.
Yeah.
They redubbed Rassilon.
Are extended.
Yeah, they redubbed Rassilon.
I actually like the redub better, by the way.
Well, I'm waiting for the next release when they apparently will probably pull a George Lucas and pop in Timothy Dalton's face in there.
I want to see a little fat baby running off in the distance.
It could be worse. Peter Moffat could write a remake.
The five Doctor, the BBC.
Where River Song and Clara swoop in at the last minute to save the Doctor from death at the hands of something.
And then they make out.
That would be the other way the BBC could make money, would be the Moffat releases of all the DVDs all over again, inserting Clara at some point in all of the DVDs.
And River Song.
No, just Clara, because she's the one that's actually going through the Doctor's timeline.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Which, by the way, would kind of be fitting considering that 2 of the Doctor's appearances and Name of the Doctor were taken from the special.
Which is also probably why you guys inserted this version, right? Because, you know, the 2, like Doctors 2 and 3, based on this special that we're going to be discussing.
Well, we were planning to do this special, actually. We were going to do it in March, but we had enough delays that it ended up not happening until the new season. Well, 7B started, so we just put it in after the end of the season.
We were kind of doing a special where we were going to do 1 episode from a Doctor a week, going all the way up to the current Doctor as kind of a celebratory thing. It didn't work that well. Because it's, you know...
Mainly, that was partially, I got a new job, you moved...
And I'll be moving again.
Else happened.
Well, that's going to be a joy.
Well, I don't have much left to move anymore.
Tangent counter goes up by 2.
3 tangents!
Reverse the polarity of the tangent counter.
Alright, so I should probably get on to summary, as we are, you know, burning time here. I will actually be doing the summary based on the original 90-minute cut, so if stuff I say sounds different from what you know, it might be an editing difference. After we get our prologue, which was a recut of Dalek Invasion of Earth's Big Goodbye to Susan, and the opening credits, we see the Doctor dusting off the shiny new console.
Oh, and we lost Randy.
Uh-oh.
He probably shared it.
Call dropped. Oh boy.
The internet has silenced Randy.
He started talking. Bitches that said nay.
Okay, how much have we lost?
You were saying something about a shiny new console.
Oh wow, that cut pretty much the entire summary.
It's very shiny.
Mm-hmm.
Did it just cut me, or did we lose everybody?
Just cut you.
Oh, jeez, great.
Yeah! Internet, everyone! Internet! We love it so much we want to shoot ourselves tonight.
Okay, so, yeah, after the opening title, we see the Doctor polishing off the shiny new TARDIS console that was built specifically for this episode. After some witty banter with Tegan, he goes out and sees Turlough, who's making a sketch of the Eye of Orion, the place the Doctor had been trying to get to for most of the last season. Meanwhile, a sinister hand starts preparing something, and we cut to see the first Doctor, or at least a reasonable impression thereof.
He's setting up for his Doctor Who RPG game. No, I'm being serious. Yeah, well, kind of, because the fact that, like, I won't, okay, when you get, tell me when you get to the part where each Doctor's getting taken away.
This was it. Generally, we don't commentary on the summary, or at least we try not to, because we try to rush through it as much as possible.
Okay, then, be my guest.
All right, so we see the first Doctor taking a brisk walk when he is scooped up by either a black parallelogram or a tornado-looking thing, depending on which version you're watching. This then proceeds to happen to the second Doctor, who is visiting the Brigadier, and the third Doctor, who's out for a ride, as on each one, the fifth Doctor has a gasping attack and nearly passes out. Turlough and Tegan help him into the TARDIS, which takes off. Meanwhile, we also see Sarah Jane Smith, about to go to work, and is warned by K9 that there's danger imminent. It then cuts to the fourth Doctor, who's out punting on a boat with Romana, and is also swooped up by the same device. Only something goes wrong, and he's stuck.
Bill, commentary later.
After a moment of frustration, it cuts back to Sarah Jane, who's also picked up, and then the Doctor lands, and they all seem to be in the same location, although different parts. They can all see the same tower. The first Doctor meanders and comes across his granddaughter Susan, who we didn't see getting picked up. but is there, and they soon run into a Dalek. The second Doctor and the Brigadier start making their way across the field as they spot the power, and they see Cybermen. The first Doctor defeats the Dalek, goes for a walk, and finds the TARDIS, which contains the fifth Doctor, Turlo, and Tegan. After a little bit of one-upsmanship there and old-fashioned curmudgery.
Curmudgery indeed.
We go back to Sarah Jane, tumbling onto the ground and complaining why didn't she listen to her dog. She's promptly picked up by the third Doctor as they go for a little drive. We then cut to the High Council of the Time Lords, where the President is grumping that the Council has made a decision without his permission, and enters the Master, whom they have summoned there for one mission, to rescue the Doctor. To get him to do this, they have promised him a whole new regenerative life cycle, which is an offer the Master can hardly refuse. He accepts, and they beam him into the Death Zone, which has become activated, and which is where all of our Doctors are. The first Doctor and fifth Doctor bring up a map of the tower and decide to go in through the main door. Around the same time, the second Doctor starts stumbling towards the underground, and the third Doctor starts gradually making his way towards the top of the tower. They, of course, run into problems. The third Doctor runs into the Master first, and the Master tries to convince him of his sincerity of trying to help him. He's then attacked by a ray from the sky, and the third Doctor drives off, taking the only proof that the Master had with him that he had been sent by the High Council. The Master then runs into the fifth Doctor, who is willing to give him the benefit of the doubt until the Cybermen show up.
You can start noticing that fate is not very kind to the Master in this episode.
Oh, he's everybody's bitch in this episode. So the Master gets knocked unconscious. The Doctor takes his transmat button and beams himself to the Capitol. And the Master is, of course, then stuck facing all the Cybermen with a broken death ray and generally a bad disposition. He decides to kowtow to the Cybermen to pray for his life. Meanwhile, the first Doctor has decided to take the fifth Doctor's place in going to the main tower, and Tegan goes with him. That's right. Instead of taking his granddaughter, he takes the Australian. Go figure.
I'll point out that his granddaughter is only ever seen from the back.
Meanwhile, at the High Council, the Doctor learns that something's afoot, and of course discovers that there is a traitor amidst them, because the transmat button had a homing signal in it. The transmat button had been given to him by the Castellan, who the President immediately accuses of being the bad guy. He is taken away and is killed trying to escape after the guards had discovered the black scrolls hidden in his room. Forbidden knowledge. Meanwhile, the trio have made it to the tower. The third Doctor, having encountered a killer robot, managed to basically escape it by sicking the Cybermen on it, and the second Doctor had encountered a Yeti. Neither one stopped them very long, as they both managed to enter the tower. The fifth Doctor, back on Gallifrey, thinks that the Castellan was set up a little too quickly, and goes back to talk to the President and discovers that he's gone. Letting a guard know to tell the Chancellor that the President has gone missing, he decides to look around the room and discovers a hidden door, which he has to play a harp to get into. In there, he discovers the sinister control room we had saw when everyone was getting abducted, and President Barusa, who is the bad guy.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, maybe one High Counselor guy that isn't a bad guy.
Well, Barusa had been a good guy up until now, so...
He'd been questionable, but he's never actually been a major threat.
Well, the one guy you freed wasn't a bad guy.
I will explain this later.
Is Flavia a bad guy?
Flavia has never been a bad guy that I'm aware of.
I'll explain this later.
Yeah, continuing on.
The Second Doctor and the Third Doctor and the First Doctor all start going through the tower. They begin to feel the will of Rassilon. Also, the First Doctor bumps into the Master, who basically sets off a trap by sicking the Cybermen on it, which kills most of the Cybermen.
Remind me to comment on this scene later.
Yes, I would like to comment on it too. And in any case, they begin to feel the will pulling against them, and the Second and Third Doctor see hallucinations of previous companions. I will also be bringing this up later. In a little thing called continuity. However, they get past this and soon get to the center where they discover the body of Rassilon lying in state and a pedestal. The Doctor's companions all get social and chat up each other while the Doctors are checking this out. And they discover that basically the prize is the ring of Rassilon, which is supposed to grant the user with immortality.
One ring to rule them all.
Boo!
They turn off the force field and call the capital, but by this time, Rassilon has managed to mind dominate the Fifth Doctor, who tells them to touch nothing.
Barusa?
The President. President Barusa has managed to mind dominate the Fifth Doctor, yes.
That's what he
You want to
said.
call him Barusa, you want to call him the President, he's both at this point.
Well, you called him Rassilon.
Sorry, that was my bad. The President. President had managed to mind dominate using the coronet of Rassilon. I got ahead of myself. Regardless, they beam over. One of the companions tries to speak to him and basically gets off a moment of freeze. And all the companions suddenly become completely worthless as they're completely frozen for the remainder of this scene. It then becomes Barusa versus the four Doctors, who combine their will and manage to beat him back. But then Rassilon's ghost speaks to all of them, telling him that, asking if they seek the immortality. Barusa, of course, says yes, and the Doctors say no. Originally, they were all going to say he doesn't deserve it, but the First Doctor suddenly says, yes, he does. Don't listen to the others. So Barusa claims immortality from Rassilon, which turns out to be a trap, trapping him in the style of a stone bust on Rassilon's grave.
And what a bust he got.
Tish.
Rassilon then asks the other Doctors if they also are claiming immortality. They swiftly say no and ask to be returned to their proper places in time and space.
Sorry, did you mention the Master getting hit over the head? Did I miss that?
Oh, yes, the Master showed up at the end, tried to pull a nefarious, ha, I trick you all and I claim the prize, and gets knocked out by the Brigadier and tied up like a campy.
although part of the reason for his heel turn, if you can call it that for the Master, is his little fit because the Doctor didn't trust him.
None of the Doctors trusted him, and he's been everyone's lackey all bleeding day today, so...
The First Doctor kind of trusted him.
But also didn't know him. But we're also
Right.
getting ahead of things. You can talk about this scene later.
Yeah.
They return all the Doctors to their proper places in space and time, return the Fourth out of the vortex, and send the Master off to God knows where, saying he would atone for his sins in time. Chancellor Flavia then shows up with the guards. After being told what's happened, says to the Doctor, this could form part of your inaugural address, and then informs him that emergency actions had been imposed, that the Fifth Doctor was once again Lord President of the High Council of Time Lords. Fifth Doctor orders the guards to escort the Chancellor back, and he would take his TARDIS, which he then uses to escape Gallifrey as fast as humanly possible. When asked why he did it by his companions, he replies, well, that's how it all started. Roll credits. Ha!
Now.
It's a little harder to do a 90-minute summary than it is for a 45-minute episode. Because a lot does happen. Okay.
We haven't done any 6-episode serials yet?
Not in a while.
Oh.
Did we do Genesis? No, we skipped over that.
Oh yeah, so the longest one we've done was the Tribe of Gum, which we summarized as rinse, lather, repeat, rinse, lather, repeat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it felt longer than it was.
I was trying to edit it for time there, Bill.
Right.
I
Instead of omitting the Master at the end, because I figured we'd get back to it.
Gotcha.
So, I must admit, I have a soft spot for this episode because it's one of the ones I remember from when I was younger.
It was actually the second Classic Who serial or Classic Who adventure that I've seen, and I've got to say, either I didn't appreciate it as much the first time. I think what happened is the first time I watched the original and the second time I watched the remaster, just based on assuming that you followed it perfectly linearly, because the editing does seem to be different. And I would have to say
some of what I did might have been off key too, because I was in a rush.
But I don't know if it's because I knew.
Different. I know for a fact that the special edition starts with this cut of the Death Zone before cutting to the Doctor futzing with the console.
No, the special edition I think starts with Dalek Invasion of Earth.
No, after the credits. I mean, they both start with the Dalek Invasion of Earth, but the special has a cleaner cut of it.
Right.
And then they go to the opening credits, and then after that, the special edition cuts to the scene of the Death Zone, and then to the Doctor futzing with the TARDIS console, whereas the original cut goes straight to the Doctor futzing with the TARDIS console.
And I don't know if it's because I knew the characters this time, or if it's because it was a different cut, or what. I'd have to say I definitely appreciated the episode more when I watched it this week than the first time I watched it, when, as I said, it was the second Classic Who episode I'd ever seen.
Probably because you knew the characters more.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because the changes to that are mostly just scene extensions and don't change the storyline that much.
Mm-hmm.
Erin and I watched both of them within the last 24 hours. We watched these.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you watched the literal differences then. Okay.
Yes. I was watching it for the literal differences.
See, the version I usually watched has been the 95 version. I actually watched the original all the way through for the first time today, this afternoon. So yeah, this is the first time I saw the classic original version. Otherwise, I've usually been watching the extended special edition version from 95.
True.
But yeah, that's really mostly the changes. Like I said, I have a soft spot of it because this is the only time you get to see, all these doctors all kicking ass in the same story.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the last time you'll actually have someone play the first Doctor, because in any of his appearances after the 80s, it was either a terrible wax figure of his head, or Ian or one of his other companions narrating without him actually appearing, which would be the case of the Companion Chronicles for Big Finish. I'm sorry, and in Name of the Doctor. He does appear in Name of the Doctor.
Yeah, that's all reused stock footage, but there's also a special coming out, if it's not already, that has the guy that played the custodian from Harry Potter playing William Hartnell.
He's not playing the Doctor, he's playing William Hartnell.
But he's playing William Hartnell playing the Doctor.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be some First Doctor-esque scenes.
Now the question is, do you think it's going to be good, or do you think it's going to be eh?
I don't know. I will reserve judgment until I see it. It could be either way. It's the way you could never tell with those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. But from what I've actually seen of still images, oh my god. He looks closer than the first Doctor and the 5 Doctors.
He looks closer than Richard Herndl, yeah. But, there's a difference of if you can look it, but can you also act it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
True. Which I will give credit to the first Doctor in this. He did nail that really
Although
good.
I don't think he had any of the...
Flynn would argue with you on that, Matt.
I don't think the writer of this special wrote any flubs into it.
Yeah, there's never any first Doctorisms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But really, that's only because he had an illness that he had most of those problems.
Yeah, but they
would botch
were...
those lines. And the fact that they were pre-recording this and not actually doing it, all in one take.
But they did start writing them intentionally. I forget if they started writing it intentionally in the show, but I definitely know in novelized versions of the first Doctor, they were written in intentionally.
See, even the other people believe in the first Doctor.
they're officially part of his character more than just a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, at least he didn't mention in this one that somebody deserved a good smack bottom. The first Doctor actually said that in an episode, and it's one of his more infamous moments.
Oh, that seems very pleasant.
Nervous smile, nervous smile.
If he hadn't, somebody might have started having to do First Doctor Tegan shipping or something.
Oh, fuck.
You'll be amazed all the shipping you see.
Oh, speaking of shipping, I have to. This is a conversation Flynn and I were having earlier about how Anthony Ainley was officially the reason why a vast majority of the people that became Dr. Master shippers became it because of his delivery, particularly his delivery in the scene where they're talking about how the Master needs to be saved. I mean, the Doctor needs to be saved. At first, Ainley gives this look, like he's baffled, like why would the Doctor need to be saved by him? Then they're talking about how he might be erased from the universe, and he's talking about how a universe without the Doctor would be unfathomable.
Scarcely worth thinking about.
There we go. Yes, there we go. That's the quote. And I think honestly, he's the only person in the room that realized that he personally would have destroyed the universe if not for the Doctor.
Probably.
But either way, apparently the delivery of that scene can be read in several different ways.
The thing is, though, I mentioned this to Erin earlier today, is the fact that, we do remember that the Doctor's latest death had been at the cause of at the hands of the Master.
Mm-hmm.
So, really, that was just like feeding blood to a shark. Basically, the Master is spending the remainder of this regeneration through the 5th, 6th. I think he gets some insanity back by the 6th Doctor, but through the 5th Doctor's regeneration, basically craving to kill the Doctor again. So he's almost levels of Joker crazy.
Well,
So it's also looking at his mentality could be pretty much, what? Nobody kills the Doctor but me!
Because it's gonna be my joy. Mine, I tell you.
Which is, he actually says that in the episode later on, is that killing you just once was never enough for me.
but killing you 3 times.
He never does get to kill the Doctor again, although the Ronnie does.
Yeah.
Technically, the Ronnie does, yeah.
The thing is, the
Doctor,
Ronnie's too much of
I
a bitch
love
to
you.
care.
Why don't you accept me, Doctor?
Not going there.
I'm sorry, it's basically like the Master has gone Joker crazy at this point.
Nobody believes.
Which, in itself would give you moments of what the hell.
Or is it more Luthor crazy?
No, he's normally Luthor crazy. However, he's gone Joker crazy.
What I mean is Luthor was originally a sane, credible villain, and then he got obsessed with Superman. Obviously, the timeline fluctuates depending on which version of him you're looking at.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it comes down to when he became obsessed with Superman, he snapped.
It could be looked at it that way, though. I tend to think the fact that he's more campy than Luthor tends to make me think more.
It really depends
Joker
on the
crazy.
situation.
Depends on which Luthor too, but yeah, you're right.
I mean, like, for example, Luthor wanted to prove he was better than Superman. So, but he wanted to prove, he was, mainly because he felt like Superman treated him like underling. Like, he couldn't do, anything better because of Superman.
He wanted to prove that it wasn't the size that mattered.
Pretty much.
Because, normally, when you had the original Delgado Master,
Mm-hmm.
all of his plots were to basically gain wealth or power. He was the Moriarty to the Doctor Sherlock Holmes. But then you get him in the revised Ainley version, and all of his plans suddenly become death traps for the Doctor. It's like all he wants to do is kill the Doctor. He doesn't care about wealth. He doesn't care about power. He just wants to kill the Doctor.
Until you get the John Sim Doctor, in which case he's essentially become Davros with the whole... Well, actually, no, he's become more the Daleks than Davros in terms of driving the planet around and taking over the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be fair about something, actually, if we're going to do something involving comparing the Master, wouldn't it be more like the Master treats him like the Riddler? Like he wants to prove he's smarter than like the Riddler?
Not
the Doctor.
Not in the Ainley form. It's not really that he's trying to prove anything. He's just trying to kill the Doctor.
Yeah.
I've often heard him described, I think Nick Izumi may have described him as Snidely.
Slightly whiplash.
Yeah, I don't think he ever tried to.
Really,
I don't think he ever tried to prove himself as smarter than the Doctor. I mean, they pretty much knew they were fairly equal in terms of intelligence, and were just trying to outdo each other at first until it became to the point of trying to kill him.
But Erin has a point. You really could give Anthony Ainley a Snidely Whiplash mustache. Just so that he could sit there and twirl the mustache and going, I have a new plan to kill the Doctor.
Wah! Doctor, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to enjoy it. Wah!
Although, no, my brain did go sideways when I mentioned that he was like the Joker, because then I could almost see the Master as voiced by Mark Hamill. Hello, Doc. Yeah.
It's easy as pie.
I would buy that on DVD.
That is a question, actually. Whatever happened to the Master after End of Time?
We don't know.
He was
He got sucked into the Time
was he
War.
Dead?
He got sucked into the Time War with Rassilon. We don't know.
He got pulled into Master Davro space, which is a parallel universe that they can exit from whenever it's most convenient to plague the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of wave at him and go, "Hi, we got brought back in the last universe reboot. Hi there."
That's how he
$5.
survived
Okay.
last time.
I think I know what Moffat's going to do. I just realized it. $5. The man that was hiding in the thing, that's the Master. I bet you $5 it's going
The man that was hiding in the thing.
Yeah, that's the Master. I bet you $5.
Which thing? I'm sorry. You need to be more descriptive than
You
the
just
thing.
got completely leapt out of logic here.
Stop
You've
thinking.
lost us.
Okay, at the end of season 7, I bet you that the person that they tried hiding, I bet you that was the Doctor. I bet
They
that was the
stopped
Master.
hiding him. They showed
No,
his face.
it's
and
not.
that's where the
If
Doctor
you really
actually-
want in on the secret, we'll let you know. We've actually mentioned this on a previous podcast.
It's still a rumor, and there's also the possibility at this point he might secretly be the 12th Doctor, but
Well, that doesn't seem that very
That would be definitely out of continuity, and I'm still wanting to get on a plane to go over and kick Moffat's ass.
Yeah.
either way, I can't picture anything good coming out of.
Yeah, the popular rumor, Mike, is that he's actually a doctor between McGann and Eccleston.
Huh. Oh, I think I remember that. I think I know what you guys are talking about.
Yes,
Yeah,
and we still want to drop kick Moffat right dead in the face.
Basically did something so horribly atrocious that the other doctors refused to recognize him as the Doctor. I'm not really fond of this writing concept.
Matter of fact, I
Some other
downright
people
hate
think
it.
it's a decent idea. I'm like, no. Stop making these huge retcons in my history.
Anyway, back
That would
to
make him the 9th Doctor, that would make Eccleston the 10th Doctor, that would make Tennant the 11th Doctor, and that would make Matt Smith the 12th Doctor.
back
Oh,
to numbers
that
1
would
through
just be
5.
bad. It felt like they just made Matt Smith the 12th Doctor. By technicality.
That would make whoever's coming next the 13th Doctor, who technically should be the final Doctor.
Well, isn't the Valyard the 12th and a half Doctor?
They erased him, didn't they?
That was supposed to be somebody that was supposed to be between his 12th and final form.
Mm-hmm.
So he was
And-
really
and-
kind of the Shadow Doctor.
Timey-wimey.
Anyway, 5 Doctors.
Yes, 5 Doctors. Really, if you take about my fandom for this episode is really quite a mess. And that's really because Terrence Dicks, the writer, really had to do too much with it.
Oh yeah, he had to do so much with it, plus he had to shoehorn and plead for actually the good parts. He had to literally plead John Nathan Turner and the others to let there be a single bleeding Dalek.
Wow.
He had to literally plead with them in order to get K9 to even make a small cameo appearance.
Really?
Yes, And he also he didn't care for the Cybermen, which is why they got the butchering of the Cybermen by the Rassilon robot there.
Mhm.
And, to be honest, it's an awesome scene.
Oh yeah, that guy, the guy with the giant. I honestly thought was like naked underneath that. It was like, I bet. Yeah, it just. I'm sorry, but
the spandex suit robot. Yeah.
There were a lot of Cybermen in this episode, though.
But when I
There were
was
basically three different groups.
They were originally supposed to be the main baddies.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't.
Oh,
stop
that's right,
staring
yeah,
at the
in the,
spandex guy's ass.
in the-
I don't know
the
why.
draft-
I just
the
kept
draft
on
of that-
staring at that ass. It was like, fuck. It was like, dear God, what am I looking at?
For the what Randy said about the Cybermen originally being the main bad guys, the draft that I had mentioned that was called the Six Doctors was basically the Cybermen had been trying to create a fake doctor, and that's what Herndal was originally going to be, which ended up being the plot of Revelation of the Daleks.
But there were some other problems. This episode had to be rewritten so many times because the original versions had Tom Baker in the draft, and then Tom Baker decided he wouldn't do it, which means they had to write him out of it.
Yeah, they literally had just finished the final draft when all of a sudden Tom Baker wasn't going to be part of it, so they had to rewrite.
And thus, while the rewrites were going on, they had the producer coming in and out and said, okay, we can't have this person or this person, but we've got this person and this person, so you need to put a scene with them in it.
They kicked out Sergeant Benton because he said that the character would recognize the Second Doctor.
He would have recognized the second
Right,
Doctor.
he would have, yeah. So they kicked him out and put somebody else in his place.
Was it originally going to be Benton who was replacing the Brigadier?
Or I don't know if he was originally going to be replacing the Brigadier, but he was going to be with him in that scene. He probably just would have been there talking with him, but that's instead they replaced him with the guy who's going to be replacing him in unit.
Oh, the scene with the Second Doctor when they're actually in the building before they get kidnapped.
This scene.
Sorry.
The scene where you've redecorated this place gets a third appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite lines. Don't like it.
You redecorated the place. Don't like it.
But
Which is funny because now that means that 2 of the 4 times that the Brigadier has met the Second Doctor, he started with the same line.
Okay, that is cute.
But yeah, so all these rewrites came up, and it basically made a mess out of the script.
Also, I don't know about the other ones, but there's in that scene when the Third Doctor meets the 2 previous companions in that corridor. Apparently, I can't think of his name now. Yates, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The guy plays Yates. He got the script, and actually his part of the script was on a different colored paper than the rest of the script. So he could tell it was kind of shoehorned into the last minute.
Yeah, that was because they didn't know if they would have him, or, they were trying to they had basically contacted as many of the old companions as they could, and basically said, can you make it for the 20th anniversary special? And they were still getting back their yays and nays when they were in the final writing stages.
That's how Jamie and Zoe got their scene?
Yes, and that's how Mike Yates and Liz Shaw got their scene.
Does anybody know if they made any reference to that in? Has anybody listened to the Big Finish Adventures with the Sixth Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie?
I have not seen any of the Big Finish stuff, so...
No, and that would be something more to talk about if we do the 2 Doctors, really.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No, because they were just illusions anyway. But
they were aged though, which is why I mentioned it. They had aged along with the actors aging.
Which only aged slightly, to be honest, at that point.
They looked a bit different than they did in the Mind Robber, that's for sure.
Well, really, again, this is something we should talk about for the 2 Doctors, where we actually see Fraser Hines doing Jamie again. If we do the 2 Doctors, which really I don't really have a better suggestion for a 6th Doctor episode. None of them are on Netflix, by the way, I looked.
Jeez.
But,
there's not a single 6th Doctor on Netflix.
But anyway.
But I'm pretty sure everything's on Daily Motion. If not, we can find other ways.
But regardless, the script was really hectically rewritten, and it shows. So there's a lot of little gaffes. The whole second Doctor meeting Jamie and Zoe is itself a giant continuity hole. Because the fact that the second Doctor actually mentions, when you left, the Time Lords erased your memories. Well, that was his final adventure. So how would he know about it?
Good point.
There's
And that of
there's
course,
actually a
is where you
rumor
get that whole secret season that people have kind of invented.
That's the prevailing fan theory, is that there's a Series 6B. Because the two Doctors, as I mentioned before, also tends to fall into that as well. Because in that one, the Doctor is working for the Time Lords, whom he was running from in that particular time.
And there's also, I guess, part of it is that he couldn't control the TARDIS during his actual run of the show, but he could in later appearances.
So, Deus Ex Machina?
Well, like I said, the fans have decided that basically, before he was forced to regenerate, basically the Celestial Intervention Agency kind of popped up to him and said, "Okay, guess what? Before we're going to force you into your exile, we're going to make you work for us for a bit."
And you can either work for us or you can take the change right now.
And really, that's the only way that you could make it with the explanations for these Doctor specials. Because of these little continuity flaws. And that is a rather large, chunky continuity flaw.
Again, the end of the second Doctor was so weird you could almost do anything with that, to be honest.
Speaking of weird continuity, I like how the third Doctor, in the third Doctor's own mind, probably saw the Brigadier not long before he stopped being the third Doctor, says, "It's nice to see you again," as though he hadn't seen him since the 70s.
Yeah.
So, to the Brigadier and the audience, it makes sense that they're saying, "It's nice to see you again," but to the third Doctor, he probably saw him yesterday or a week ago.
Doctor mannerisms. He knows that this Brigadier isn't his present-day Brigadier, so yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Doctor immediately recognizes Sarah Jane as Sarah Jane, yet at the end of the episode when they're taking off, he mentions, "Nice to meet you too."
That was the fifth Doctor.
No, that was the third Doctor to Sarah Jane.
Oh, no. But that was the third, because she said, "Nice to meet you," and held out her hand to Peter Davison, and John Pertwee says, "Nice to meet you too." She looks at him confused, and he says, "I'll explain later." And then they go off together.
Which is implying that this is prior to his meeting Sarah Jane.
I took it as meaning that he was saying it for the fifth Doctor.
That's basically his way of explaining to her that they're the same person.
Yeah.
And then he's going to explain in more detail later.
Especially since, she had actually seen him become all teeth and curls.
Well, she understood the teeth and curls, but she'd never seen the fifth Doctor before.
Yeah, she's familiar with the third and the fourth Doctor, but she's never seen the fifth.
Right. And of course, Pertwee messed it up himself by doing his whole little game of borrowing lines from people.
I'm actually disappointed. I really was hoping that there was going to be some type of game thing. But it just felt like, we're just...
Rassilon?
Yeah, when he says, the games of Rassilon. I was actually hoping that they would go into more detail with that.
Well, that's what the floor tiles of Doom were about. That's what all of the people shooting at each other.
That's what the entire Death Zone was.
Maze of,
but that's disappointing. I thought it would be more like something puzzles or chessboards. I don't know. I'm just always.
Well, they also had to sit there and decipher Greek while pretending that it was ancient High Gallifreyan.
And of course, the floor tile of Doom scene, which you wanted to talk about, Bill.
Yes. I like how if you really watch people, the master's pretty much saying that you just follow the digits of pi to get across, and the Doctor claims he's telling the truth and follows him. But if you look, when the parts where the Cybermen are not yet electrocuted, the Master, the Doctor, and Tegan all step on different tiles than each other. So there's literally no rhyme or reason to what tiles will or will not get you electrocuted.
No, well, No, the part of that bill was the fact that the tiles that are used change every single time somebody crosses.
Then how does that involve pi?
That is my issue with it, is because the fact that there is no way pi should be involved in that equation.
Yeah.
There are no circles involved.
There are no circles, exactly. That's...
I thought it was like based on like move 3 steps, move 1 step, move 4.
Yeah, see, the way that Herndal explains it in the scene is basically, the 3, 1, 4, 2, 6 or whatever.
No, he starts mentioning pi as if he's trying to remember the numbers to himself.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that scene is how I actually memorized the version of the numbers for pi, which got me through, I think, 7th grade math class.
I just realized something, guys. I guess it's kind of variable anyway. But like, could it be just the number of the tiles that he's stepping on, like third from the right, or,
But again, it's a different path each time.
Yeah, but like maybe it rotates.
No, I didn't really see that, because the strides the master took each time he crossed were different.
Yeah.
He would be taking one, and he would jump across to another one. There was no real rhyme and reason to that.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be some gigantic equation the Doctor had to solve, which involved pi. But there's no real rational reason for pi to be there, because,
Right.
pi deals with circles. Circle ratios.
Yeah. Like, unless they're dealing with something fifth dimensional, in which case, a word of explanation of a hypersphere or something might make sense.
It's one of the things that Star Trek does have above Doctor Who, is the fact that they will give you technobabble porn.
You know what I hate, though? What I hate is when you're paying attention to the technobabble and you think they're saying something smart, and you're sitting there with a calculator, pen, and paper trying to figure out what they're saying until you realize it's actually complete bullshit and you've just wasted an hour.
Okay, yeah, that is kind of like a pain in the ass.
Oh no, I love that personally.
Because I'm the one who will sit there and try and figure out just to know what the Doctor's talking about. Like I was the one who sat there.
That's Doctor. I was talking Star Trek. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I mean either of them. Like I was the one who had to who sat there and read the whole Wikipedia article on happy numbers after watching 42.
I did too, actually. Because I wanted to know what the hell happy numbers were.
Right. I also wanted to know if RTD made them up.
That was my big question, yes. And I discovered he didn't, so I was like, okay, cool.
Back when we really liked Doctor Who.
Hey,
but earlier on...
Turn one of my numeric password into consecutive happy primes.
Earlier on, we were talking about both problems and with Cybermen. And one of the scenes that kind of cracked me up in the movie, there's been talk about how they couldn't find ways to make the Cybermen suitably threatening in certain classic Who episodes. And it's nowhere more obvious than here when, in order to make the Cybermen more threatening, while the companions are screaming, "Hey, Doctor, look out, Cybermen!" the Master is looking in every direction except the one that the Cybermen obviously are coming from, so that they can get the drop on him. Like you see the Doctor look, forward, to the left, behind him, when obviously the Cybermen have to be to the right. He just refuses to look because then he would see them.
That's stage direction, really.
Inevitable.
See, that's the Spielbergian equivalent of look slightly to the left. Oh, you're missing all those dinosaurs over there. See, Jurassic Park reference.
So you said slightly to the left, and my first thought is, I've got some maneuvers. We can outrun them.
But no, it's
I was disappointed there was no kung fu action.
Oh yeah, I would have liked to see more Kung Fu on the third Doctor, but I think he's starting to get a little on at this point.
Although he aged remarkably well.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, he did.
His appearance-wise, he aged miraculously well throughout.
He's in a time capsule.
he looked the same as he did when because it had been almost 10 years since.
Well, even in Dimensions in Time, when he had that cameo with the 3D glasses, he looked, as far as I could tell, identical to his run during the show.
That was almost 20 years.
One of those faces that just doesn't age.
Mm-hmm. Piss you off, don't it?
I mean, granted, if you looked at him 20 years before he was in Doctor Who, he might have looked remarkably different, because that was, before he reached the status of being, for lack of a better term, old. Whereas after that point, he pretty much, as long as he stayed in shape, was not going to change that much.
Funny you should mention going back 20 years, because actually if you went back 30 years, he would have been a spy in World War II.
Did we find out if that was true or not?
I've seen pictures, man. They look dead on.
Found pictures of top secret spy action that nobody knew about.
Of a soldier lined up for...
he worked for Naval Intelligence.
Right.
He worked for Naval Intelligence during the Second World War, alongside Ian Fleming, by the way.
Oh.
The man who wrote James Bond. So, really, John Pertwee may have been the inspiration for James Bond.
Hey-ya!
Let that burn on your brain for a while.
Well, that and the 2 Doctor Who movies.
And while we're in contact, while we're actually talking about something that's semi-related, James Bond did go on to become a Rassilon.
One of them, anyway.
That's true. Yeah. Yes.
I always did mention what I would have loved to see Sean Connery as the Doctor. Not as he's now. I mean, like classic Sean Connery.
Hello, Barbara. How are you doing today?
Reference my snogging fox.
It's easy when you have 900 years experience.
So is he Yoda?
What?
Oh my god, Yoda should be the Doctor.
I actually made like a bet with someone to see who would be the worst Doctor.
Yoda was the Doctor in the late 80s.
Actually, no. Me and my friends actually talked about what would be the worst idea for the Doctor. And some say, what if we get a black guy for the Doctor? Some say, what if it was a female for Doctor? And then someone said, hey, why don't we just unbury the...
Both of those.
And then someone was like, why do we unbury the first Doctor and then put him on strings and make him like a puppet? And it's like, pretend that
now that's dark.
That's just sick.
That's like dark, man. That ain't right. That ain't kosher.
Either that, or they just get the 10th Doctor and they just put a wig on him. And it's like, hey, I'm the 12th Doctor. You look like the 10th.
Don't give people ideas.
Yeah. don't encourage them, Mike.
Oh, come on. The 12th Doctor, the 10th Doctor dressing up as the 12th Doctor, but he still look just with a wig.
You will be lynched, Bob. You realize
there are already enough people on the internet that don't get the idea of new Doctors that tend to be 12 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, he's coming back for the 50th so that he can take over as the new Doctor. It doesn't work that way.
Oh, yeah. No, not any clones in all the world.
We kind of booted his clone into an alternate dimension and left him there. And he can stay there.
Yeah. With Rose.
With Rose. Because we don't need her to come back and be a Deus Ex Machina again.
Yeah, there's several things
we have
that
enough
would
of
qualify as bad Doctors. I think one of the top of my list is Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
I honestly think that if you took what's his name, Jack Sparrow, and made him a little less drunk, a little less self-serving, you'd have a decent Doctor. Especially, I look at the scene where he stole the ship in the beginning of Pirates of the Caribbean. Looking at it back at it would be a great Doctor moment.
Yes, but you could see the person that was explained to Johnny Depp that basically the Doctor's essentially like Willy Wonka in space. And so he pull out his creepy Michael Jackson Willy Wonka. Yeah.
Oh God, you just gave me nightmares, Randy. Damn you!
How does every podcast come back to Willy Wonka?
Because it's the world of your imagination.
How many times have we brought up Gene Wilder or Willy Wonka on this podcast?
Hey, I would have loved to have seen 70s Gene Wilder as the Doctor.
Oh, hell yes.
Oh my god, that would be so awesome.
A second round of teeth and curls.
He would have been awesome because, yeah, it was that. So it might just be that subconscious desire.
Well, speaking of doctors aging well, Troughton from, what was his last appearance? 85-ish?
Oh, now I want Michael Caine as the Doctor.
Troughton from 66 to 85. Did he even age?
He did start, yes, his hair started to go grayer, and he got a little jowly.
And he got a few more wrinkles, but that was about it. He didn't, like, really look severely aged, but he looked slightly aged.
And then, of course, his character in the 3 and the 5 Doctors was essentially younger spirited than he was in the 60s, so that helps him maintain his immortality.
And, you know, I actually realized something earlier this week that kind of blew me away. This is, 5 Doctors is the 20th anniversary special. And it's now 30 years after it aired.
And the 30th anniversary special was Dimensions in Time.
And with the mention of this, Randy died again.
Is that me again?
Yep.
There was there anything for the? Oh wait, no. Yes. Zagreus was the 40th.
Yeah, but that was.
You can all get a copy of that. That's Big Finish.
Yes, I know it is. I've listened to.
Well, I figured you did. I was for everybody.
But you were saying,
that might be something.
It's just the fact that there's been more time now between the 5 Doctors and the present than there was from the beginning of Doctor Who to the 5 Doctors. Kind of boggles my brain a little.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. I feel. Well, that's just like, I mean, I still think of something that came out in 2000 as being fairly recent. You look back at it. There's been more time between me graduating from high school than there was between 2000 and me graduating from high school. And I'm granted that's probably not anything new to you, but still, you know what I mean.
That doesn't do anything for me.
Hi, welcome to the old geeks room.
Yeah.
Give me back my Nintendo!
The 90s were always good.
What are you talking about Final Fantasy 4? Give me back my copy of Final Fantasy! Ah!
Put Belle and Sebastian back on TV, goddammit!
Oh, speaking of Final Fantasy, did you know that the PS4 is remaking Final Fantasy?
I don't know what to think of that.
Only if they make it with quality.
No, they remade Final Fantasy for PS1.
And that's a complete non-topic tangent.
Yeah. That's
probably like 10 now or something. I'm guessing.
I think we're technically on about 5 or 6 actually, but
yeah.
I count a continuous tangent as one thing, not the different parts.
Yeah. So what's the next thing we want to talk about with this special?
We were talking about the episode itself. We were reviewing different aspects of it.
Right.
I'd mentioned a couple of things. You know, you had mentioned the Cybermen. We'd talked about the Master and how he did that.
Oh, I would like to mention that this is the first time we heard about Zodin.
The terrible Zodin, yes, who would come up again with the 6th Doctor and then be promptly forgot about.
Sadly.
Yep. It was supposed to be.
It sounded interesting, but they never did anything with it.
It's too bad Colin Baker couldn't show up as a minion of Barusa or something.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Maxwell come back as, you know...
Then this really would be the 6 Doctors.
Yeah.
Though not intentionally.
Yep. I think I had mentioned that to Erin. It would have been nice to see Colin Baker as Maxwell in there, who of course was a guard in Arc of Infinity,
Mm-hmm.
and I think was still alive at the end of the episode. So could have made a return.
To quote
here.
Colin Baker, not a bad idea to try and shoot a guy in order to get his job.
That would have been fun.
When David Tennant first appeared in a Doctor Who related thing, did he shoot at the Doctor?
No. He was already the Doctor.
No, he
No,
wasn't.
there was some audio he was in, but no.
He was a supporting cast for Paul McGann's Doctor, I believe.
For one of the audios, yeah, and he was mostly a spectator. So.
Anywho. Seven tangents.
Well, that's not really a tangent. That's Doctor Who.
It's still a tangent off of being on topic.
Let's see. There was something I was about to bring up, and you derailed me.
Oh,
Oh yes,
Okay.
Barusa.
Bruce, oh yes.
I'm not very happy with how he was portrayed in this. Barusa was a character that first showed up in The Deadly Assassin with Tom Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been in every single Gallifrey appearance since, usually as the Doctor's friend. Although there was, he was the Doctor's ex-teacher. And there was some, disapproval, schoolmaster disapproval / respect at times between them. But, to pretty much have him do a 180 of everything he stood for and become this flat-out villain, I think was kind of depressing.
Yeah, one could blame it on the regeneration, but at the same time, I wouldn't think it would change a Time Lord that much.
That he was willing to sacrifice so many people to become immortal.
It must have been something that happened after his regeneration, and it
So
had to
he
have been
could
something
rule as
big.
President Eternal. It just seemed to be,
Yeah, it seemed a real one
right. And I mean,
what he should have been.
there is the hint of it starting with good ideas, where he was like, my work being unfinished, and I, need more time to do good deeds or whatever. But
what is this from?
this when he was like explaining why he wanted to when he was explaining to the Fifth Doctor kind of the origin of the scheme.
It still though became a 180 of this person.
Yeah, it was still like, this is the only appearance of him I've seen, and you still kind of just see him as a two-dimensional ruler who wants to be immortal.
Seriously, Bill, sit down, watch Deadly Assassin, watch
It's on my
Invasion
queue.
of Time, watch Arc of Infinity, and watch this. Watch them all back to back.
Okay.
And you'll basically see the evolution of Barusa and how this does not seem to fit his stereotype.
Yeah, because all the other previous ones, even if they had some slight bickering moments, were still very much friendly with the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Until suddenly this one, and it's just like, eh? Matter of fact, he even
And
talks less with the
furthermore,
Doctor in
he
this
would
one,
know
too.
the Doctor was a man who, tended to, win at the end. I mean,
yeah, and
he
even
beat
by
the
that logic, he
master
was
at his own. He beat the master.
Well, that
own
was the
assassination
point.
game.
That was why the Doctor was there, to win, so that he would win the game of Rassilon for him, and then he would show
For
up and take
him,
the
you
prize.
see, that's the thing. That's the point. Barusa would have been a little more farther sighted than that.
I have
should
no
have.
idea what you guys are talking about. Darn.
Okay, so the president of the Time Lords in this episode, Mike.
Yes.
He was in previous episodes going all the way back to the Fourth Doctor.
No, that I got. It's just that, to be honest, I thought that Gallifrey was always confirmed to be, it's trapped in the space-time continuum known as the, whatever, Time War thingy.
The Time War thing didn't pop up
That
until
was
after
that
the
was
Eighth
introduced
Doctor.
in 2005.
I had to actually say one thing, though. I didn't expect Gallifrey to be like a thing of this, but that's probably because I never watched the rest of the I never saw the Doctor Who series before this. And just one thing, I never expected the Gallifrey to seem so British.
It is.
I'm sorry, but when I'm looking at it, I just thought to myself, so this is Gallifrey? It looks like a bunch of crystals around in a British castle.
It's freaking Wales, man. Literally, the entire special is shot out in Wales. They didn't have to travel very far.
But I thought that this was supposed to be like, you know, fancy and special and unique.
But the thing is that a lot of people would also like to reference the fact that it looks so British. It's because it's a strange part of Gallifrey that people normally don't even get into, much less see.
So is that why Doctor Who always?
So that's what their excuse for this one is. I think the only other time we saw outside in Gallifrey before was
Wilderness.
Huh?
Invasion of Time. We saw the wilderness.
Yes, Invasion of Time. In which case they did try to tint the sky and stuff.
Yeah.
Can I also mention one thing that's kind of off topic, but involves Doctor Who? But it kind of involves the main evil plan. I just remembered this, and when you were talking about this, I was remembering that the president was like okay, the main thing of how he was capturing all the guys was like he was turning them all into figurines and then putting them on his table.
Those were representatives, not the actual people.
No, that I got. But when I was like looking at it, I was like thinking to myself like, this guy has to like RP a lot, or this guy's like must like be playing Doctor Who RPG like Dungeons and Dragons. Or something, like, how the hell, it's like that just rolled in my mind every time I watched it.
Doctor Who, the board game!
Now, I personally think the BBC made a massive, massive marketing mistake because they never released the Game of Rassilon figurines.
Oh, yeah, they really should have.
I mentioned this to Erin earlier. It's just like, I would have bought a set.
In a heartbeat?
I would have wanted to collect them all.
I found it interesting that they used a Herndal action figure and not a William Hartnell.
Well, they were trying to probably make it look as close as they could to the actor they were having play the first Doctor.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they made these special figurines specifically for that piece. And you would have thought they would have taken the mold, cranked out a few hundred more, and market them as, you know, the Game of Rassilon figurines. I would have done it.
Yeah.
And if it happened today, they would have done it.
Probably.
See, that's the thing. Any American or Japanese show at that same time period, they would have been all over the place. There would have been special versions. There would have been a Barusa version of the same style and everything. But Doctor Who was too used to essentially being, you know, an arm of the government to think about the whole, you know, mass marketing 30-minute toy commercial mentality.
Which is a crying shame. Because I can tell you, the first time I saw the Five Doctors, not the first time, but, you know, the first time I had access to the internet after I watched the Five Doctors and thought about it, I went looking for those figurines. I spent hours searching for those figurines.
I'm sorry for you.
Because I wanted them badly.
That reminded me of the time I was trying to find like some type of like Mario arcade, like Mario board game thing.
It just didn't make sense to me that they did not make the figurines.
Probably was like so detailed or something. Or
they were perfect. I would have loved to have had them on my desk.
Are they actually plastic or are they carved from wood or something?
I couldn't tell you.
Because they look more like they're hand carved.
Well, they
even so, I would have been fine with just plastic molded ones in the same poses. I just thought that would have been awesome.
Yeah, but anywho. Oh, anything else to bring up?
I think that's all of it.
Horn that sounded over everything. That's one thing that I'll associate with this episode for forever.
Horn?
Yeah.
The horn blast.
That and bad synthesizer music.
Depends on which version you were watching. I noticed in the special edition, the playing of the harp got changed because the original cut, the harp was obviously electronic, and in the special edition, they changed it to actual harp music.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing so, they tune.
Yeah.
And the special edition, the synthesizer music is a lot more understated. Oh yeah, let's talk about the TARDIS console.
Oh yeah, the console is the first on this one too.
This is this is where the budget of this show went. To this new TARDIS console that would remain the console up until the end of the show at Survival.
We also see him very carefully dust it off when we first see it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they're proud of it. They're showing it off.
Mm-hmm.
Because it had all these little readouts and displays and flashing lights and everything.
Yeah, I think there's at least 2, if not maybe up to 4 monitors hooked up to that thing, plus all these actual flashing working buttons.
I'm wondering if that, cost the BBC a pretty penny every time they had to run it.
Don't know on that. I do know that that thing weighed a freaking ton, which is another reason why they probably didn't want to move it anywhere.
They have it now in the BBC in the Doctor Who museum. Or I think they call it like the Doctor Who Spectacular or something. It's this show that they have that has all of this old classic Who stuff. Doctor Who Experience, I think it's called.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, that particular console was apparently so heavy that they needed like 3-4 guys to help place a panel. And also they really wanted it to be something more than the usual, oh, that's just apart from this and that's apart from that.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually made some real buttons, some real switches, some stuff that actually flickered and lit up. And
yeah, it was not half-ass made. Now, this is not the first time the console had been replaced in Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Well, true. I mean, it still looks kind of alright.
I mean, the original console, I think, lasted through the first, second Doctor and into the third Doctor, but mind you, it had been planned for black and white back then.
Right. Yeah. Changed. I think they changed. Yeah, they changed it around the time that the third Doctor started seriously using the TARDIS.
Yeah, he had the old one for most of it, and it was kind of this bizarre color scheme because it looked okay in black and white, but once they got to color, it's just like the pro.
Yeah.
And I think they only used it a grand total of 4 times.
For the Doctor's last season. The third Doctor's last season, they replaced the console. And
was it the last season? So that would mean he had a full season of
the old
TARDIS
console,
travel with the old console?
Yeah, but I think they never actually did much inside the TARDIS for that season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was replaced when Sarah Jane came on board. And then they were replacing it almost seasonally with the fourth Doctor.
Well, they also had the secondary console
control room,
Doctor,
and then they came back with a new console room like a season later, and then they came out with a modified console like a season and a half later.
And of course, by this point, with the fifth Doctor, the footage quality was improved, so they might have needed to update the equipment for that.
True.
But this was the first time the console itself had been massively changed, other than the one in the ancillary control room.
Am I the only one who thinks that Matt Smith's TARDIS looked like a giant arcade machine?
Which one?
Okay, the Matt Davis's one. It looked like a giant arcade machine. I'm sorry. When I was looking at it, it just looked like something that people would
like pinball almost.
Yeah.
Like a pinball machine?
The first
it does,
one he
kind
had.
of.
The first one he did, the one that was starting in the 11th hour and continued until the snowmen, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I like the new one.
Yeah, the new one is a little more classic design. That's kind
Yeah,
of a
it's
little better.
a throwback to the old Fourth Doctor era console.
Although I've seen complaints about it, but
The new one?
Yeah.
They can kiss
Of course,
my
you're gonna see
ass.
complaints about anything.
Look at
I like
me.
Then again, I pretty much like. Actually, I pretty much like every console we've gotten, really.
I
except
wasn't that fond of the first Matt Smith one because it was
Yeah.
a little too steampunky for me.
Yeah, that is exactly what I had a problem with. It was too steampunky, and it was right around the time that steampunk was actually starting to die. It's like, you really want to go with that choice? Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
I got used to it, but I was never overly fond of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it was made worse by River's song stating that the wheezing, groaning sound came because the doctor left the brakes on.
And that's when we
That's not a
punched River
complaint
Song
about
in
the
the
console.
face.
That just
ruined the experience for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, we do understand that the first Doctor did not know how to fly the TARDIS when he stole it, but still.
There were still plenty of times when he knew every nook and cranny of the thing. I think he would have turned that off if that was actually the handbrake.
Yeah.
Right.
Not to mention the fact that we actually saw the handbrake in the movie and it was off.
Not to mention we've heard other TARDISes make the exact same sound, and they were better quality versions.
That's the kind of logic that only works if you pretend that the show first started in 2005.
No, it's the only one that the logic works that you pretended that the show first started in 2010. You know, when Moffat took over.
Which
But
is
River
Song
Song first appeared in 2008, so it would have had to at least started then.
Yeah, except for the fact that Moffat is also fond of, pretending that, stuff that RTD made canon actually, works that way.
Like, oh my god, you guys, this has to be canon. If it's not canon, I'm going to sue.
Well, actually, excuse me, Moffat is not even good at having stuff work the same way in its own season.
Yeah.
Like, I think we got 3 different stories...
when no one may lie or refuse to answer.
In 7B, so I'm pretty much just,
ready to eat your own head after you drop-kick Moffat into a bucket of
I'm pretty
lie.
much just ready for a new producer to come and ignore everything Moffat did.
Mm-hmm. Which is what we're still waiting for on Spider-Man, by the way. Anyone undo his deal with the devil, please?
Well, to make things worse, they actually did reboot the Avengers, and they tried doing the same thing they did with like the TC thing, where like they inserted Cyborg and they ruined Teen Titans.
Facepalm. Anyway.
Wait, where did Teen Titans and the Avengers come into one another?
8 runoffs now.
Okay.
I don't know if the 8th Doctor has a catchphrase. I don't know if I can repeat it.
It really wasn't around long enough to have a catchphrase. So.
Well, you probably would have to buy a dozen Big Finish adventures to know it.
What is your obsession with catchphrases?
Yeah, what has been your kick
That's
last
how you
days, man?
distinguish each Doctor and each character.
Not really.
You know that.
I mean,
You know, if they've redecorated, you don't like it. Exterminate, excellent, and reverse the polarity.
I really don't separate them by their catchphrases. I basically separate them based on their personalities.
Personalities and the way they dress.
That's part of the personality.
Not really. It's just what they say, and a lot of them have repeated similar lines from one another.
I mean, if you want to make the catchphrase of the 4th Doctor, would you care for a jelly baby? You have to remember that that's also said by the 2nd, the 8th, the 7th, the 11th.
Much more by the 4th than by the rest of the others put together.
Yes, but he wasn't the first to say it, and it wasn't uniquely his.
But
also, they've been
he did
using
say it in
reverse
his
the
first
polarity since
episode
the
and his
3rd.
many episodes.
Mm-hmm. God knows Tennant said it a few times.
Yeah, we've been reversing the polarity for how long now? Since the early 70s.
But yeah, giving the Doctor a distinctive catchphrase, I think, has been something they've only been doing since the reboot. I mean, the previous Doctors would say phrases, but they weren't really considered catchphrases.
I think by the time the the 5 Doctors came around, "You've redecorated this place, I don't like it," was clearly a second Doctor catchphrase.
No, it
No,
was mostly only said by the second Doctor, and it was only done during the specials.
That was a throwback reference.
But anywho, is there anything else?
Actually, one thing I want to mention. I watched, knowing that there was Shada footage in this. I intentionally watched Shada before. No, Tom Baker pronounces it Shada.
I've heard literally everyone, even in the BBC, call it Shada, but
well,
okay.
In the serial itself, they called it Shada, so that's what I'm going to go with.
I could have sworn he said Shada.
Unless he said both, but in the beginning of it, at least he said Shada. He might have said both.
I don't know. I'd ask Douglas Adams, but he's dead.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I watched that specifically thinking I would find some good scenes that they ended up reusing, and I realized if they had literally gone into this thinking, okay, we have a bunch of footage of Tom Baker, let's write a script that makes good use of it, they could have done so much better than what actually ended up happening. Like, they mentioned artifacts of Rassilon, Time Lord of Prisons, plenty of things that really could have contributed to this special. Instead, you can pretty much tell this was an afterthought. They were trying to figure out a way to actually have Tom Baker speak, so they put in the footage there, and that was really all the thought that went into it.
Pretty much. They were working on a deadline.
Yeah.
They were working on a deadline, and Shadow was the only unused archive footage that would make sense.
Because it wouldn't be until the late 80s before they actually would release Shada in any format at all. So
yeah,
90s, I thought.
Whichever, it was at that point. Those clips were sitting in their archive as unused material. So they basically just sat there and
what I mean is they
used material and said, okay, this scene looks like it works. We'll use this scene.
Yeah. What I mean is if they had taken if they had just had a draft of the script, realized, hey, Tom Baker's not going to come, let's use Shada or however you choose, and incorporate it. There were a good number of scenes that they could have put in that really would have worked well with
they would have had to have gotten the express permission of Douglas Adams to do so.
You should be amazed at how many times you see that happening, where that case the script always screwed over.
Douglas Adams owned it? BBC didn't own it?
Douglas Adams wrote it. And the Douglas Adams and the Doctor Who production team did not leave on the best of terms.
Right.
So Douglas Adams was left with most of the rights to his scripts with him.
Well, I mean, most big franchises, once you write something for them, they own it. It only seems to be Doctor where the script writers seem to run away owning a bunch of rights.
It's something that was in the BBC's license. I know the fact that they have never been able to make a novelization of City of Death because Douglas Adams refuses to let anyone else do the novelization, and they couldn't pay him enough to do it himself. And the same holds true from Shada. He took his ideas from Shada and wrote them into Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
Well, they did eventually do release a Shada novelization, though.
Yes, but they probably had to do it with Douglas Adams' permission. Either that or Douglas Adams was dead by then.
Yeah, he was dead by then.
Yeah.
So they kind of had to wait until he was toast.
Because you can't write a novelization from the grave, unless you're a ghostwriter. Ba-dum-bum. These are the jokes, people. Come on.
So wait, Douglas Adams regenerated into God, no, I had his name like a second ago.
Which one are you going to say? The new Hitchhiker's Guide guy or the one that wrote
No, he made a ghostwriter Ghost Writer, I was going to make him a Ghost Rider.
And who?
Which Ghost
God,
Rider?
Matt, no.
And who did Buffy regenerate from?
Hey, I like the comic books of Ghost Rider. They're actually the only thing Marvel hasn't screwed up
which
yet.
Ghost Rider, though?
Okay, is it true that Moffat regenerated from a fanfic writer?
I think so.
You
Either that or he's
consider
been
the Curse of
possessed
the
by
Fatal
one,
Death be a
because River
fanfic?
Song is definitely a Mary Sue.
Do you consider
I was
Curse
actually
of
going to
the
say
Fatal Death be a
self-insert.
fanfic?
Like his wife wanted to like.
Self-inserts are 90% of the time Mary Sue's.
Yes.
Oh, true. But that seems like it's like promoting it or trying to make it seem like it's like seems like it's like worse than that. It's just like it's bastardizing the show.
It is. It essentially was making the last half of the 6th season The Adventures of River Song, and not Doctor Who.
And her whole origin cheapened what it meant to be a Time Lord.
Yep, that too.
So-
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Talk about another part of your brain that you want to lobotomize. What's that? What's River Song? Can't remember it.
So the 5 Doctors.
Oh yeah, we're supposed to be talking about the 5 Doctors.
There was
Hey.
5 doctors.
8 times we've gotten off track. Ah.
Uh,
I will
Okay.
beat this
Anything
count
else
joke
you'd like to
until
bring up?
it's funny.
I think that's it. Well, that was actually kind of fun.
Does,
Yeah, I
does
like
anybody does
Does
anybody want to talk about the end of time, or are we skipping that today?
End of time. What?
What? Huh?
Meow.
I was just saying if anybody wants to talk about the newest regeneration of Rassilon or not. I know sometimes people want to talk about it.
Well,
Sometimes
other than the fact that I
too.
suspect the next version of the DVD, they'll do a George Lucas and, put out Timothy Dalton's face. That's about it.
Yeah.
We must wait till then.
I mean,
As long as he
fact
still
that-
has that big, deep, burly voice.
Rassilon has always been kind of going across levels of, between good and bad, and the Timothy Dalton version is obviously messed up, but that also could have been because of the Time War, too. We don't know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I as a Seventh Doctor fan, and knowing what they were trying to do, or at least certain writers were trying to do with the Seventh Doctor, I like to look at the whole scene of the Doctor really knowing what the ring was about, while everybody else thought that it would actually make Bruce stronger, as the Doctor was an old friend of Rassilon's, remembering something from between them.
Right.
Or the first Doctor was. I'm not really going anywhere. That's just an aside. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, we could elaborate further. But
For Mike and for anyone who's new to the idea, in the 7th Doctor, we had a companion called Ace. She was probably one of the last really popular companions, and was also the last one we had until the bringing back of Doctor Who. There was a lot of side story stuff going on, layers within layers inside the plots towards the end of the 7th Doctor's run, where apparently he was planning to possibly get Ace prepared to become the first human Time Lord.
Huh.
That's part of the whole Cartmel season 26, and I'm not going to
Cartmel
touch
master
that.
plan.
Yeah,
But-
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
But also at the same time, there was also some other stuff going on that hinted that the Doctor was more than the average Time Lord. And a lot of
The
it.
Doctor are the same person.
But
have-
apparently
if we're gonna
there's...
go into that one, I have
Oh,
something
God
to bring up.
damn it, Erin!
What?
You
I'll-
set Bill
I'll go
off.
into that one.
What did she say? I didn't even pay attention to that.
They have the same baby.
Oh.
Oh.
Go ahead, finish your
Anywho.
story. Then we can talk about the Master and the Doctor being the same person.
Oh, God.
It's
This is the
possible.
cast that
It's
never ends.
possible.
But the one of the other side plots going with the Doctor was that he was not a normal Time Lord, to which there's also hints of there being 3 major background Time Lords. One of them was Rassilon, the other was Omega, and the other one what do they call him? The Other?
The other.
Yeah, the other.
And they were starting to, some of the writers have said since then that they were hinting towards the idea that maybe the Doctor was the Other. And that apparently something really bad had gone on between him and the other two major figureheads of Time Lord history, and he decided it was best to go undercover and hide himself, and that leads into a whole bunch of crazy, which then turned him into the first form of the Doctor.
Okay, basically the other back then during this is again more of the Cartmel season
He's
26
a Time
map.
Lord God.
But they were talking about the fact that Time Lords weren't born; they were loomed out of these huge genetic looms because all Time Lords were inherently sterile.
Huh.
Because of the witches
It
from
was a curse,
Phobius.
wasn't it?
But so the other was supposed to be this great Time Lord that was along the lines of Rassilon and Omega, and basically something happened, they turned on him, and he threw himself into one of the looms, which of course destroyed him completely, only he was supposedly reloomed as the Doctor later on. Pretty much this is obviously not happening since we have now seen Time Lord children in, like, Sound of Drums.
They could still be loomed. Different types of looms make different types of rugs.
Yes, but they actually stated in there that the looms, they came out of the looms fully adult. There were no Time Lord children, according
What
to...
if they're like midgets and then they just regenerate into fully grown humans?
Oh, Erin, you keep pushing and pushing.
Hey, I'm just trying to be imaginative.
Erin, honey, I love you, but you're giving me a headache.
Just wait till we watch Twilight together, Ren.
And just wait, and Matt, just wait till I show you all the Doctor Who's, like, parodies.
Oh, God.
Oh my god.
Must you really?
Bill, are you dating Matt?
Being the troll.
Never mind.
Well, no, I just showed
the trolls.
Yes, I showed Matt feed the trolls, and then ever since he basically lost his hope in humanity.
Oh yeah, I do like Feed the Trolls too. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
website.
because of you, Mike, I shared that with Erin, and we both watched that now.
It's pretty fun.
He did a vlog recently, and he hates the new YouTube as much as I do, so more kudos. But
It's confusing. It hurts my mind.
they're apparently making it more like an iPad.
Well, that's what they're doing with the new Halo game. They're trying to make that game look more like make that look more focused on...
Are you talking about Bungie's new MMO, Destiny?
No,
Apparently a new Halo game.
Oh.
Bungie doesn't have anything to do with Halo anymore, by the way.
No, I know. It's Studio 343.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it all sucks now. But
Yeah, Bungie's
Hold on.
making an MMO called Destiny.
yeah, that I understand.
So, since
This
Aaron
tangent
mentioned the
time.
idea,
This
Aaron mentioned the
podcast,
idea of the Doctor and the Master being the same person. So I'm going to expound on a little ridiculously fanish theory that would have no reason to actually make it into the show that I've sort of concocted.
I totally believe that.
everybody paying attention, this might be a good time to go get a cheese sandwich.
But the start of this in Legopolis, either the Doctor or the Master mentions that they have the same mind. Now, then you look on this a little bit further, in the name of the Doctor, there is a version of the Doctor that they refuse to call the Doctor. Look again, you see that the first Doctor, Roger Delgado, is in his last regeneration, whereas we have 11 Doctors. So, if you really look at it, the idea could be that the Doctor in his 11th or 12th or 13th regeneration were to become the Master, hence him having the same mind, and also wanting to kill himself because in his lucid moments he wants to prevent himself from ever becoming evil and becoming the Master, whereas in his less lucid moments he just wants to take over the universe.
First of all, Bill, That is so thin that if this was soup, I wouldn't feed it to homeless people. The quote that you're using there as your basis is somebody asking the doctor, how did he know what you were planning to do? And his response is, we're Time Lords. We have the same mind. But he's saying that because they're Time Lords. And it is, of course, later revealed during the RTD era that Time Lords are, or actually it was revealed during Deadly Assassin, that Time Lords are actually kind of telepathic with each other.
That sounds kind of perverted at the same time. It's like, I know what you're thinking.
You don't usually know exactly what you're thinking. It's usually more of a kind of a...
When the master's involved, you sometimes do.
It's more of a minor buzzing in the back of your head. Because being able to pick out one person's thoughts through the crowd was, you know...
The master is a pretty strong telepath, and certain versions of the Doctor were as well.
He's a hypnotist, not a telepath.
Yeah.
There's a difference between a hypnotist and a telepath.
A hypnotist where you can just look at someone and force your will on them seems to be more of a psionic invasion than the actual hypnotism.
It was always supposed to be hypnotism that he did, at least during the Delgado era, was because the fact that he was supposed to be able to, you know, hypnotic eyes, do stuff. It was, again, copying Moriarty, who was supposed to be able to do much of the same thing.
So,
That was the whole "I am the master and you will obey me."
Anyway, like I said, I wouldn't really take this seriously, and it would be probably not a good idea if the show took that idea. But it's still fun in the idea of making fanish theories that have no chance of actually appearing.
Yeah.
That by the way, that would hit me as something Moffat would do, Bill.
Yeah.
No, he would actually put it on the show.
The ultimate destiny of our hero is to become this, you know, fucked up evil villain that's responsible for killing a third of the universe.
And body snatching.
And body snatching.
In my idea, he would probably just have the other guy be a sliver of his form, so he's really just taking over his own body.
Which other guy are we talking here, Erin?
Mrs. Father.
Yeah, well, there's also Eric Roberts, cab driver from the...
I forgot about that.
So, regardless, body snatching.
Body snatching.
Ew.
I want to say, yes, Nissa's father was literally named Backwards Master, but I don't think Eric Roberts was.
Mind you, that was the whole thing that they basically did to, you know, basically let you know that that was going to be the Master or something to do with it. But yeah, Tremas was another Master anagram. That was actually deliberately put there as a red herring. So you would think Tremas was the Master when it turned out he wasn't, and then later, of course, he did become the Master. In a kind of will they, won't they kind of thing.
Anybody know what Eric Roberts' name was before he became the Master?
Oh, God.
I can't remember.
Oh. They mention it.
Bruce something.
Bruce something, yes.
Maybe it's just Bruce. I guess it's just Bruce.
Okay, Bruce. Yeah, I think they only call him by first name anyway, so yeah. Not really a master anagram at all, so...
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, the guy that wrote that was not good enough to
get the master jokes.
Yeah.
Because apparently in the novelization he has the surname Gerhardt, which is also not a master anagram.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it is starting to get late, so shall we do our ranking out of 5?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, we started late because internet go crazy.
Because we can't have a podcast without tangents, and there's more of us today, so more tangents.
So,
how about our guests go first?
We are now at the David Tennant of tangents.
So, guests. Yes, you go first, guests.
So, I'm glad
the rating system is 0 to 5, although Bill argues the 0.
Oh, well, to be fair, I mean, it was a really good concept. So I'm guessing it would probably have to be like a 3.5. I thought the ending was really kind of, half-assed.
Kind of comical almost.
But besides that, I mean, it seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, it was a comical ending starting when the Brigadier hit the Master over the head for whining too much.
Yeah, it's very much don't take this way too seriously.
So, what was your opinion, Erin?
I'd give it a 3. Maybe a high 3, like a 3.5 or 3.75. It's definitely fragmented. There's definitely, challenges with it, especially with Tom Baker not showing up. That's the down point for me, because he's my favorite Doctor, so it would have been really nice to see him. Of course, then they probably wouldn't have had nearly as much time to show him, and they probably would have had to cut down on all the appearances by everybody else.
And it would probably be even more fragmented.
They would have had to cut down on the Doctor at the time being the star, which he essentially was. He would have had to share equal stardom with Tom.
Pretty much.
Well, like I said, Tom was supposed to be the one that did all the stuff on Gallifrey, because Tom
Which
Baker's
makes sense,
Doctor
because that's his main thing.
Yeah.
Well, not his main thing, but one of
Whereas
the things
Peter
he's known
Davidson was
for.
then supposed to lead the forces that were going to go into the tower.
Okay.
But they, when they rewrote it, they gave Tom Baker's part to Peter and kind of separated more of it out between the other Doctors for what was going on there.
I really liked it. I liked seeing some of the companions, especially all... Actually, I pretty much liked all of the companions. I did notice that Susan's makeup was very heavy. She looked like she may have had some plastic surgery a bit. Quite a lot.
I know they went out of their way to show Susan from the back as much as possible.
Yeah, she had some very heavy makeup on, some very heavy toner and whatnot. And I'm not usually someone who notices that kind of thing.
I think
It
they
usually
might have been
doesn't
trying
bother
to make
me.
her look younger than she was, but it wasn't working, and they probably just didn't know what to do. And
Well,
It's like
do
she
silly
brought in
things.
her own makeup to use, and it didn't really transfer to the film very well.
She was 43 at the time that this was made.
And they were trying to make her look like a teenager, probably.
They're trying to make her look like she was in her 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, for example, I also thought that... Well, I loved seeing Sarah Jane back. She's always fun. And I actually really liked
Oh, yeah.
Don Pertwee,
we-
too.
Speaking of Sarah Jane, we didn't really mention this, but this special sort of puts K9 and Company officially into Doctor Who continuity.
Yep.
Yeah, it officially canonizes it, which of course it would come back later in School Reunion.
So even the new series says it's canon.
As crappy as K9, we should really do a special on that.
You know,
Should, because actually it isn't that bad except for the long
remember it
stretches
all
of
that much.
yawn.
you know, actually, K9 is actually having its own TV series.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen it.
isn't it?
They've been fighting for that for years.
No, it's been on, Matt. It aired a season.
Finally.
Oh, I thought it was over. I know it did have a fair number
Yeah,
of
I don't
episodes
know.
out.
They're talking about putting out a second one.
Anywho.
It's
Bill,
actually, I
Randy,
think,
or
it's
me?
in States.
Bill, Randy,
Has
or
anybody
me?
watched an episode?
Of what, K9?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen most of the season.
Is it what, Mark 4, Mark 5?
It's a new design. It's supposed to be a revamped Mark 1.
Ah,
Anywho.
Some-
Mark 1 was left with Leela?
Correct, on Gallifrey, so... But it's also at least partially amnesiac, so... the only way we know that it's the original Mark 1 was the fact that the producers, who were the original creators of that episode, confirmed it in, Word of God.
Anywho. Who shall go next for rating? Crickets
Well,
chirp.
you spoke up, Matt. You go.
This is to say, crickets chirp. Fine, I'll go. I would rate this above the Three Doctors, which was an okay episode. And for those of you who don't know, the Three Doctors was the first Three Doctors during the third.
Does anybody remember our average for the Three Doctors?
I think that was like 3.5, something like that. 3.5, somewhere in the middle. It was very middle range. And this seems to be slightly higher than middle, so I would actually dare to say, despite all of the flaws, it's yet again a fairly decent episode, and definitely one that people remember and like. So I'd peg it at about 4. It's not perfect, but for what it is, it's good.
Yep, I'm gonna come down kind of the opposite of that. I agree that this is around middle-ish territory, but I would put it below the Three Doctors just because there's so many, things. I mean, I'm sure there was time constraints, budget constraints, and everything else. So I'm not condemning it, but at the same time, there are definitely things that could have used improvement, and I think there are more of them than there were for the Three Doctors. So I'm actually going to probably say give this a 3 out of 5.
And I have to agree with Bill on that. I will give it a 3 out of 5 as well. Mind you, this is based solely on the quality of the episode and not my like for it, because I still love this episode to death. But that's mostly because I remember watching it as a child. I used to have this one on tape. But if you really look at it with a critical eye, you see a lot of where the writing fails. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. And it's, if this was an episode that had come out today, I would have probably be blasting it for, a lack of logic and continuity corrections. But at the same time, it's really nice to see, all the doctors that were out at the time involved in one episode. So that does.
You wouldn't be blasting it as much as you do the average Moffat episode anyway.
But so that would about raise it back up to about the middle of the road. So I'll give it a solid 3. So we have 3. Matt gives it a 4.
3.5.
And what, 2 3.5s basically?
Yeah, so it comes out to about a 3.4.
So 3.4 average. So it's just a hint above average. Is the general readout. Well, I'm pretty sure that Flynn gave this a 5.
No, Flynn has gone on record saying that he does not like this episode.
Oh.
Or at least, he's mentioned that he would have little to say because it was such an average episode, which would probably put him as coming down straight in the middle, straight as a 3.
Or maybe even knocking it slightly lower.
But yeah, if you went below average.
Flynn actually agrees with us on the fact that the Three Doctors was better than this. But I will argue in that defense, the Three Doctors only had 3 doctors.
Yes.
To deal with.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing. This episode had 5 doctors and let me see, 2. A lot of companions.
2, 3, 4, 5 companions, 4 cameos.
Okay, now I was going to counting. Okay, you're counting K9.
5
I was
cameos.
not counting. Actually, 5 cameos.
An arch-villain, a long-time series-running monster, 2 of them actually. The Yeti sort of counts.
The Yeti, the Dalek, the Cyberman, the Master. One, I believe, new monster. Am I correct?
The Rassilon robot, yes.
Yeah, the Rassilon robot, plus the actual plot. So there was just too much for the writer to keep track of.
Yeah, maybe if this thing had been stretched out for 2 hours, it might have been much better.
It could have been a great 6-episode serial.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. You could have actually made an entire damn season out of this. It would have actually kicked ass.
I would have started it out.
It took too long, but by the time it would have finished, it wouldn't. When it finished.